Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Rich, for that very generous introduction. Darlene, thank you very much for inviting me and for helping bring this all together. I want to thank the advisory committee, in particular the GSA representative on the advisory committee, Kevin Campshire, who's really our he's really our guru. He's our energy efficiency rock star. Maybe later we'll get him to sing, but. Just kidding. Sorry, Kevin. Rich, I also want to thank you for not mentioning my stint at Metro. I find that changes the nature of the questions I get. But you know, today it is a very important day in my life in particular. It's April 1st, and I know most of you think, well, that's April Fool's Day, and so that's true. But in my house, it's my wife's birthday, so we're not allowed to celebrate April Fools. It's because it's her birthday. Now, I have to say it's also significant because 2 years ago, exactly on this day, I accepted the position of GSA administrator. My wife describes it as the cruelest April Fool's joke ever, but particularly given the time. It was a very difficult time for GSA, but really by focusing on our core mission, by focusing on the important work we do and some of the significant opportunities we have to contribute to improving the life of the American people through the agencies we serve, GSA really has again begun to demonstrate how powerful a leader it can be in influencing certain marketplaces. The energy efficiency marketplace in particular, and that's what I'd like to talk a little bit about today. For those of you who don't know, I'll summarize it by saying GSA is very big. We have 9,000 facility assets. 375 million square feet of property under management in some form. 450 of those properties are historic properties. They're iconic properties. Within Washington, D.C. alone, GSA owns 111 buildings, about 30.8 million square feet of buildings that we own within D.C. We also have 160 leased buildings in 309 leases, representing another 24.6 million square feet of property under management just within DC. So the simple fact is, as a landowner and as a real estate manager that big, energy efficiency has to be a big part of what we do. But even if we didn't want to, the president's told us we have to. In 2009, President Obama made sustainability a priority for the government by issuing Executive Order 13514 on federal leadership in environmental, energy, and economic performance, setting aggressive targets for each agency to meet by 2020. Given the size of our building portfolio, it was clear that GSA was going to play a significant and important role. And in fact, since 2009, we've nearly doubled the number of green registered buildings that we have within our portfolio. So we have begun to develop tremendous momentum in continuing to extend the number of buildings that we have under green registry. But that's really a representative of not just the progress we have made, but the progress we need to make. This building you may recognize, you in particular may recognize it, David, is the Department of Energy building. It built in 1969. The ironic quality of this building is that it utilizes approximately 6,000 BTUs of energy per square foot more than the industry average. And with 1.8 million square feet of space, this building is burning 10.8 billion BTUs of excess energy, enough to energy to power almost 300 average U.S. households for an entire year. I'll talk a little bit later about the partnership we're engaged in with the Department of Energy, Downtown Bid, the city, and others to really rethink the way we lay out the space that this building is occupying and really try to find ways to modernize the environment that the Department of Energy gets to work in so that they're not sitting, frankly, in an ironic building. They can sit in an iconic one. But that means really rethinking the way we approach space in general. Look, this is the traditional aspirational office for the last 40, 60, 80, 100 years. But really, the office environment that we operate in today should really reflect the environment we operate in today. Darlene did my trick and pulled out her iPhone and waved it around. The world in which we operate has changed so dramatically in the last 5 or 6 years, in part through information technology and communication technology revolution that we're experiencing. The way people expect their services to be delivered in their personal life really needs to begin to be reflected in the way we deliver the government services that people expect and demand. We need to change the way we sit. We need to change the way we operate. This is now, you're looking at my desk at the red arrow. The white arrow is the head of our public building service, and the blue arrow is the head of the Federal Acquisition Service. We used to sit in 3 different buildings about 4 miles apart from each other. We now sit on 1 floor in 1 office, 39 feet away from each other. I like to say that I traded in my personal 1,600 square foot office, which is what the size of the office that came with the position was, for a 6,000 square foot office that happens to have 49 of my closest friends and colleagues in there with me. But the simple fact is that we needed to physically break down the barriers that separated us so that we could reduce the friction in sharing information and allowing each other to communicate and work with each other. By doing this, we had the basic bottom line result of saving $24 million in rent. We reduced 6 leases into 1, and we doubled the number of people in our building. Those are the kind of things that we need to see more of as we get a more efficient use of space, as we make that space more efficient. So figuring out ways that we can better manage our space is part of that relates to then understanding what's going on in that space, the consumption of energy, how we use it. We have 450 buildings with advanced metering within GSA. 80% of GSA's total electricity consumption is actually continually monitored under advanced metering systems. And that's allowed us to detect patterns or problems when they develop. This is an example of a building in which we noticed through advanced metering and continuous monitoring of the output of the advanced metering that we were cycling the building actually during the Christmas holiday. You see the first red circle, that's the building systems coming up and the HVAC kicking on, the lighting coming on. The problem is there was absolutely no one in the building. By having the advanced metering technology and continually monitoring the performance of the building, we were able to, in the second red zero, shut it off for the January 1st holiday, for the New Year's holiday. It's that kind of effort that allows us, frankly, to get a better sense of what our buildings are doing, how we actually use them, get a better sense of how we can better manage them. That's what led us to develop the GSA Link program. We have it installed in 50 buildings now, which ties together all the various different building management systems and puts it against a set of algorithms and rules that allow us to ask questions of how should this building be working so that we can spot problems before they actually turn into bigger problems or bigger issues. We can begin to see if the quality or performance of a motor on an HVAC system is beginning to degrade or move out of the manufacturer standard before it actually shuts down or breaks down, causing harm for our tenants, but also causing damage along the way in terms of our energy sustainability. In fact, in just this building, we were able to identify some rogue fans. I just like that name, rogue fans, these giant rogue fans. It turned out they were actually giant and they were quite rogue. They were, because we hadn't been looking at the way our exhaust fans in the building garage had been programmed, had been timed, these things were just running continuously. By looking at the energy data, by understanding better what the performance parameters of our systems are supposed to be, we were able to schedule these fans around when they were actually needed to be turned on, saving $800,000 in 1 year. Part of it means, part of what we have to do though is also understand what is the best available technology that will help us achieve these kind of savings. And so we have a program that we're deeply committed to called the Green Proving Ground, which allows us to try out various different technologies to see if we can then begin to feed them into our buildings. We've tried things like variant refrigerant flow, which will allow us to simultaneously heat and cool spaces using the same systems. We've tried out, as this example shows, various different types of photovoltaic systems. Try to understand which are the ones that produce the most electricity against the initial cost. And in this instance, we found that the medium efficiency crystalline PV is the one that was best for this particular use. We've tried things like wireless mesh sensor networks to allow us to better understand the temperatures across a facility or across buildings, allowing us to reduce cooling load by 48% and reducing the total data center power usage in the particular facility we tried this out on by 17%. It means also not just saving energy, but diving into the idea that our facilities can actually produce energy. And through investments under the Recovery Act, we've been able to increase our renewable on-site electricity generation from about 2,000 megawatt hours in 2010 to 27,000 megawatt hours in 2013. And we hope by the time all our projects are done, 29,000 megawatts per year. That's enough to power 2,570 homes, or the way I like to think about it, Ocean City on the off season. GSA has also over 120 projects that have installed efficient, low-maintenance LED lighting. You probably recognize that. That's where we were just this morning out there. This is the Ronald Reagan building, one of our LED lighting implementation sites, but also, very important, the first building to have LED lights in Washington, D.C. when it was first built. Also a way to save energy, but reduce the impact on the environment, green roofs. And GSA has been a leader in the world of green roof implementation. In fact, we've been able to see as much of a reduction of 10% of temperature 1 foot below a green roof. They can be that dramatic in terms of their ability to reduce energy demand. They make our buildings more sustainable. They help us support broader efforts to reduce impact on water quality. And GSA has, within 61 buildings, more than 2 million square feet of green roof space. This is about 45 football fields. In fact, in DC, GSA has nearly 1 million square feet of green roofs alone, with the Coast Guard headquarters building, the new Coast Guard headquarters building in the St. Elizabeth's campus, representing the third largest planted roof in the world. The second biggest green roof on the East Coast is actually the NOAA facility in the Suitland Federal Center in Maryland. But not just, we need to focus not just on making the buildings that we manage more sustainable. We also need to recognize that at the moment that we have an opportunity for reinvestment, there's a real opportunity for us to dramatically change the way the building operates. And we have demonstrated that in the 1800F building, our headquarters building. And I'd invite you, if you haven't yet been to the GSA headquarters building at 18th and F, to come and see what we've done there, both the radical transformation of traditional federal office space, as well as finding every way that we can make the building more sustainable and frankly more friendly for our users. From motion-sensitive lighting to a really radical new invention that I think is going to catch on. It's called opening windows. But just by, even with the solar installation that we've done on the top of this building, we've been able to generate, we have a goal of generating 700,000 kilowatts per year. Another great example of taking a historic building and recognizing that these incredibly valuable, very thoughtfully designed assets can actually be modernized in a way that's truly transformational is our Wayne Aspinall Federal Building in Colorado, which we hope will be the first building on the National Register of Historic Places that will actually achieve net zero energy when complete. The way we've done this is by really focusing on reducing internal loads through controls, daylighting, modern lighting systems, and tenant electrical load management, understanding what the demands are and finding ways to reduce those demands and make the use more efficient. Second, we increased the performance in the building envelope using super insulated roof materials and higher insulation in walls and high-performing windows. Third, we install very efficient mechanical equipment, including geothermal wells for ground source heat pumps. And finally, we used renewable energy from solar power to offset the electricity from the grid. Another great example of taking an existing, well, this wasn't particularly historic building, but a long-standing part of our asset base, and totally transforming it was one of my favorite projects, the Edith Green Wendell Wyatt building. And if you're in Portland, I strongly suggest you go take a look at it. This is an example of a mid-century building in which every one of the elevations was essentially the same, regardless of how it interacted with the environment, where the sun was, and where it would be exposed to more winds. We actually replaced the original proposed two-phase construction project with a single-phase project in which we moved everyone out. And that opened up the possibility of really tremendously and radically transforming the building. From taking the skin and pushing it out further so that we gained over a foot of space around the building, adding the equivalent of an entire floor's worth of space to the building, to integrating new heating systems and replacing the forced air systems with a hydronic system, recognizing the fun fact that heat and water is 3,500 times more efficient than trying to move the same amount of heat and air. And by incorporating things like shading integral to the new exterior, we were able to reduce heat loads in the building. Adding the wing on the top allowed us to both capture water for irrigation and gray water purposes, but also dramatically reduce the heat load. Overall, the work that we've done in this building will save us about 21,000 BTUs per square foot every year on this building. It's truly a remarkable example of what you can do when you really are thoughtful and start from scratch and think about what you want the building to be for the next 50 years, not just where it's been for the last 50. And that's the kind of efforts that we're trying to engage in with all our community partners. A great example of that is the Federal Triangle South, or Eco District effort that we're engaged in with the BID, with the city, with others, to really rethink the southwest area of Washington, D.C. and the federal presence in that area, trying to find ways that we can take, say, the unused floor area ratio around buildings like the Forrestal building and turn it back to the community, generating some proceeds, hopefully, so that we can develop a more efficient and effective Department of Energy headquarters building for the next 50 years of the Department of Energy, and contribute more to the economy of the host city in which we're so proud to be part of. It's that kind of work that we're constantly trying to find ways to infuse into our program. It's conversations like the one we're having this morning. It's meeting with experts like you that's going to make us better at the work that we do. We are really interested and focused on trying to find ways that we can implement these best practices, experiment with them, share with you our experiences. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today, and I'm looking forward to the results of this conference. Thank you.